friends, I'm Johan Gladson and welcome back to my channel Joe's Learning. In today's video, we will be discussing about informal letters. In the previous video, I have already discussed about formal letters. So if you haven't watched that video, the link is in the description box. So let's get started. So as we have discussed in the previous video, letters are written message generally used to convey information from one person to another. Letters are of two types. Formal, which we have discussed in the previous video, and informal letters, which we will be discussing in this video. What are informal letters? Informal letters are the letters which you use to send to your friends, your family members, your relatives, or someone who's close to you. It is a type of letter in which you use a casual and emotional and informal tone. Informal letters are also the type of letter which is used in unprofessional situations. Now let us move on to general features of an informal letter. First of all, there is no strict rule of writing an informal letter. Next, in informal letters, you can write short sentences that are lacking formal vocabulary and grammar. The next important thing to be remembered while writing an informal letter is that you can use idioms while writing an informal letter. And what are idioms? As I've discussed before, idioms are expressions that you generally use while speaking to another person when you don't actually mean what you're saying. For example, that thing cost me an arm and a leg. Well, this expression doesn't actually mean that thing's cost was your arm and a leg. It actually means that its cost was so much, like it was very costly. Another point to be noted is that you can use contractions in your informal letter. And what are contractions? Well, as I've discussed earlier, contractions are the shortened version of two words with an apostrophe in the place of omitted letters. For example, in informal letters, you can use instead of I would, I. That is, you're shortening I and would and replacing the omitted letters W, O and U with an apostrophe. Some other examples of contractions are couldn't, didn't, shouldn't, wouldn't, and so on. Another thing to be noted while writing an informal letter is that in informal letter, you can use imperatives. And what are imperatives? Well, imperatives are basically commands that you can use in informal letters. Some examples of imperatives are send the package soon or complete the form immediately. Another point to be noted while writing an informal letter is that the sentences in an informal letter should be in active voice version. That is, you should give more importance to the speaker rather than of the object. Another point to be noted is that in informal letters, you can use abbreviations. For example, instead of saying as soon as possible, in informal letters, you have the choice of writing it ASAP or just as soon as possible. Another point to be noted is that you can use in informal letters phrasal verbs. And what are phrasal verbs? Well, as I've discussed in the previous video, phrasal verbs are basically a combination of an adverb and a verb. It could be go up, go down, find out, etc. Another thing which you should always note in an informal letter is that you have a choice to put an exclamation mark in your informal letter. Now we are done discussing the general features of an informal letter. Next comes the format of an informal letter. First is the sender's address, that is your address. Then comes the date, which is normally written in British format. That is, for example, 3rd December 2021. Then comes the salutation of your letter. That could be Dear Ram, Dear Friend, Dear Bestie, Dear Mom, Dear Dad, and so on. Then comes the body of the letter. That is the actual message of the letter. The body of the letter is divided into 3 paragraphs. that are the introduction. The introduction is the paragraph in which you give a brief introduction to what you are going to say. Then comes the content. The content is where you explain more, like supporting sentences related to the introduction. Then comes the summary, where you recap all of what you said in short sentences. After that comes the complimentary close of your letter, which could be yours sincerely, yours lovingly, your friend, etc. Then comes your name and your signature. Now, as we have discussed the format of an informal letter, we will be proceeding to the layout of an informal letter. First comes in the left-hand corner the sender's address, that is, your address. Then, after leaving a line, comes the date, which is normally written in British format. For example, 11th November 2021. Then, after leaving another space, comes the salutation of your letter. The salutation could be Dear Mom, Dear Dad, Dear Friend, Dear Sam, and so on. Then, after leaving another line, comes the body of the letter. The body of the letter is divided into 3 paragraphs. First comes the introduction paragraph, which gives a brief introduction to what you're going to say. Then, after leaving another line, comes the main content of your letter, in which you provide supporting sentences. Then, after leaving another line, comes the summary of your letter. In the summary, you have to give your final thought. Then, after leaving another line, comes the complimentary close. In the complimentary close, you have to put, for example, yours sincerely, yours lovingly, your friend, your son, and so on. And then, after leaving another line, you give your name and signature. And that was the layout of an informal letter. I hope you guys understood the features, the format, and the layout of an informal letter. If you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And please be subscribed to my channel. And see you all in my next video.